Boom, 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 Mr. Stevie's Toy Tales. Excuse me, I'm moving a lot slower today. It was my birthday yesterday. 51 has to be the most anticlimactic number in the history of birthday ages. Did get this really cute little crocheted Deadpool from my youngest. Love it. I didn't get many toys. Got the usual dad stuff. But a few weeks back, I was at Red 5 Toys and Collectibles with Chris Rife and a load of others of you, and had a wonderful day. And I did treat myself to an early birthday present. Bought myself a Droid factory. I've been wanting one of these for decades. When I was 9 years old, I had a really good friend called Bryce Lennon. Very dramatic photo of Bryce there, but he deserves it. He's an actor, don't you know, of stage and screen. We lived in England. He was American and lived in England, so he was very exotic in our little village. And he had the Droid factory, the Kenner Droid factory. And I remember seeing it and wanting it. I was convinced at the time that it wasn't Star Wars because I'd never seen it before. Now remember, Palitoy had a version, which we'll talk about later, but it's very, very different. This Kenner one was out of this world. When he showed me the R2-D2 with 3 legs, just like in the movies, I wanted it, and I wanted it. So that is what this episode is all about. It's exploring the Droid factory, its history, its variations. There's a few little secrets and something rather interesting I've got to share with you. So, without further ado, let's make a start. Kenner released the Droid factory in 1979 underneath the Star Wars banner. It was released again in 1980 underneath the Empire Strikes Back banner with different toy photography on pack. But it was never seen again after Empire Strikes Back. Not in that particular guise, but we'll talk more about that in a while. The concept for the toy itself was very different, very innovative. Previously, Kenner had made action figures and ships and vehicles, but this was something else, something new. This was construction. The kid was drawn to the set knowing that R2-D2 could be made with a 3rd leg, very important. But along with that, they could build up to 13 official droids, but also have the tools and the parts and the pieces to build hundreds of droids only limited by their imagination. Now, I was delighted that the Droid factory I picked up at Red 5 came complete with the Droid factory parts list, and most importantly, the blueprint manual that gave you the step-by-step instructions to build the 13 droids and give you the prompts for the hundreds of and contained within your imagination. So what did I do? Well, the first thing I did was I built the droid. So run VT, let's have a look how we build them. Kenner named some of the droids in the instruction manual, but they also didn't name some of the droids in the instruction manual, so I've taken it upon myself to create my own Kenner-esque names. Hope you like them. For the final droid, Kenner went all in and created the monster droid. But to be perfectly frank, it's more monstrosity droid. It uses all the pieces. It's a complete mess. It doesn't stand up. I don't like it. But you know who it's for? Yeah, you know, kids. Couple of interesting observations about the Kenner Droid factory itself was that it came in 2 color variants. There was an orange base and a darker brown base. The darker brown base was heavier than the orange base. They must have used different plastic, otherwise there wouldn't be any weight differences. I'm not quite sure the reason behind that, but they're different. The other thing to of is that if you take a look at the R2-D2 that comes with the Droid factory and its base body with the sticker, and you hold it next to the original single-carded R2-D2, you'll see that the stickers are different. They're flipped, they're flopped, they're mirrored, they're reversed. Why? Don't know. Probably a bit of an artwork oversight, but if you haven't spotted that, here you go. Now, as I mentioned, in the UK, we didn't get the Kenner Droid factory. We had the Palitoy Droid factory, which was very, very different. The Kenner Droid factory had injection molded plastic, and it was big and bulky and heavy, and it had a big crane and all the pieces. The Palitoy one took the value down a little bit, made it a little bit more inexpensive. Instead of a big plastic molded base, they had a vac formed base, and they got rid of the crane and instead put like a little string winch up the ramp, which you could turn and bring droid parts up and down. The base itself came in 2 color variants. The blue base, which you can see on all packaging, and then for some reason, and I don't know why, if any of you know why, let me know, there was a yellow version as well. But that didn't have updated packaging with the yellow version. It just seemed some kind of random color they put in. I don't know whether that was a conscious decision or whether the vendor and the factory just ran out of the blue plastic and went, oh, we got some yellow plastic, should we do it in that? And they went, yeah, why not? Do it. I don't know the story behind that. I wish I did. So if any of you know, let me know in the comments below. Now the Palitoy R2-D2 was different again. Remember I said that the Kenner Droid Factory R2 had a flipped sticker compared to the Kenner single card-backed R2. Well, the Palitoy one was different again. Instead of a straight blue bar at the top of the sticker, the Palitoy one had a little wavy one. Don't know why, but there it is. Now, as I mentioned, the Droid Factory wasn't released again after 1980, but it was reused again for a different toy in 1983 and 1984. The base of the Droid Factory was repurposed to deliver Jabba's Dungeon playset, which was a Sears exclusive in 1983 and then again in 1984. The 1983 one had a sort of a dark grey base and came with some easily available figures. But in the 84 version, it had a tan base and came with the harder to get, nowadays, Power of the Force figures. Kenner also toyed with the idea about the Droid Factory pieces. They got rid of them. They replaced them with 3 figures. So the draw of the product was, hey, get these 3 figures in this playscape environment, this landscape, that you can play with other figures. So it went from a construction kit into a more traditional playset area that focused on the figures. So with some very simple swap outs and some re-expressions and some colorization and some new stickers and things like that, you went from a Droid Factory to a Dungeon playset. Very, very clever. So let's talk about exclusives. What is an exclusive? Well, a regular toy release goes to multiple retailers and is put out everywhere. So there's lots and lots of it made. Now, sometimes a retailer wants something just for their retail store, something special, something different. But the numbers of production are usually a lot lower. So it costs more to kind of create bespoke tooling to create those toys, because you're not going to sell as many because it's a retail exclusive, it's a smaller set. So what's quite common in the toy industry, and has been for decades and decades and decades, is to take something that already exists and add little bits to it, or change the deco of it, or bundle it together with other toys to create a unique offering. Now, what exclusives need are toys that can be reimagined and re-expressed. For example, Kenner wouldn't have made a blue Millennium Falcon, would they? The Millennium Falcon is a character in the movie and everyone knows exactly what it looks like and what it should be. It's too different. Kenner could have taken the X-Wings and given them different sticker details to kind of pull out Red 5 or Red 4 or Gold Leader or different X-Wings, but it's kind of too subtle. It wouldn't jump off the shelf and therefore say, hey, look at me, I'm new. So the transformation of the Droid Factory into Jabba's Dungeon has got me thinking, what would I have done in the late 70s, early 80s for Kenner if I was there for exclusives? It's one little group of toys that would be, in my mind, perfect. MiniRigs. Now the MiniRigs are an interesting toy. They are small ships that are good value, that parents could buy if they couldn't afford the Falcon and the AT-AT and the Snowspeeder, etc., etc. And they are what are described by Mark Boudreau, who designed, I think, all of them, or the majority of them, are just off-screen. So imagine if you're watching the Battle of Hoth for Empire Strikes Back. If the camera just turned a little bit over there, you would have, or fallen, you would have seen these ships. They were involved in the Battle of Hoth. So MiniRigs were born. And Mark told me that he had great delight in designing the MiniRigs because it allowed him to be expressive and to design and to kind of invent and imagine. So they're recognizable enough as vehicles, and yet they're not seen on screen. So therefore you have more freedom to design them. So imagine, if you will, if we took the MTV-7, which is a Hoth vehicle, and just redecorated it to be Endor. It's an all-terrain vehicle, right? It could be on any planet. Another good idea is take the Endor Forest Ranger and change that environment. What if that was a sand dune, buggy, burying thing. I don't know. But all I do know is that the MiniRigs would have given us some great examples of exclusives, but they never did it. I'm sure there are thousands of customizers out there that have already done it. If you know anyone that's been doing that kind of thing with MiniRigs, let me know, because I'll be deeply interested. And I'm just looking out of the corner of my eye. I have a couple that I might actually start busting apart and repainting. I hate this hobby. So as I was researching the Droid factory, its history, its variations and all that jazz, which I love doing. Here's one thing that I did find out that I don't think you know, or I'm going to add a little bit of extra flavor to that story. If you look at the packaging of the Kenner Droid factory, the Star Wars edition, you will see on the pack that the little rover vehicle that's on the ramp has some wheels, right? And when you open the pack and you look at the wheels, they're different. The wheels in the pack are these kind of like weird dome-shaped ones that look a little bit like R2's head. But they don't match the ones on the front of the pack, which are square and look more traditionally like tires. What happened to those wheels? Why did Kenner change the standard wheels into the dome wheels? So I was talking to some people that I know, and I found out that those square wheels that were shot in the original pack photography still exist, which I have right here. Yep, you heard that right. This set of molded tires, wheels, are the actual wheels that were used in that photo shoot. A good friend of mine has lent them to me. I will be giving them back to him on Monday. But why did they change from a traditional wheel? And these are molded plastic. These were actually made by tools. These weren't sort of mock-ups. Why did they change from that to that? I can only imagine that maybe this looked more Star Warsy and was reminiscent of R2's helmet, as I mentioned before. But fascinating. I don't know the reasons why, but you are looking at the original plastic molded wheel that was used for the Droid factory packaging. How about that? Oh, I can mix and match them. Now that would be interesting. But anyway, there you go. Fascinating. And so for your visual delight, a truer representation of the Droid on the pack in real life. So there is your guided tour around Kenner's Droid factory. Hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. There's nothing I like more than getting a toy and delving into its history and trying to find out some little facts and tidbits that I can share with you. So this Tall Toy Tales, goodness me, is a history lesson for me. I love doing it. I hope you enjoy watching it. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, albeit how many hours are left, depending on where you are around the world. Have a great week. And remember, bugger off. I'll see you next time.